It will not be my intention to do anything to benefit any American.
I understand that.
It's for all Americans, everything that we do.
That was Dr. Ben Carson yesterday in his Senate confirmation hearing, being questioned about whether or not he will ensure that Donald Trump will not personally benefit from him being Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. Answer mystified many people trying to understand what he meant. The retired neurosurgeon testified at a three-hour hearing before the Senate Banking Committee on Thursday. Carson told senators he's committed to a listening tour to get input from local HUD offices and community leaders to solve problems with less emphasis on a Washington-driven approach. Carson also said he would support rental assistance programs for those with no alternatives and affordable housing and enforce all fair housing laws.
Do you believe that HUD has a duty to take actions that promote equal access to housing opportunities for LGBTQ people?
If confirmed in this position, of course, I would enforce all the laws of the land. And I believe that all Americans, regardless of any of the things that you mentioned, should be protected by the law.
Do you agree that the government should continue to provide rental assistance to the more than 4.5 million low-income households across this country?
I think the rental assistance program is essential. And what I have said, if you've been reading my writings, is that when it comes to entitlement programs, it is cruel and unusual punishment to withdraw those programs before you provide an alternative route.
All right, folks, but when pressed by Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren, Carson wouldn't flatly rule out directing federal dollars to projects that could possibly benefit Donald Trump's development businesses.
My concern is whether or not, among the billions of dollars that you will be responsible for handing out in grants and loans, can you just assure us that not $1 will go to benefit either the president-elect or his family?
It will not be my intention to do anything to benefit any American.
I understand that.
It's for all Americans, everything that we do.
Do I take that to mean that you may manage programs that will significantly benefit the president-elect?
You can take it to mean that I will manage things in a way that benefits the American people. That is going to be the goal.
To the best you understand that.
If there happens to be an extraordinarily good program that's working for millions of people, and it turns out that someone that you're targeting is going to gain, $10 from it, am I going to say, no, the rest of you Americans can't have it? I think logic and common sense probably would be the best way.
Yeah, although we do have a problem here, and I appreciate your good faith in this, and I do, Dr. Carson. The problem is that you can't assure us that HUD money, not of $10 varieties, but of multi-million-dollar varieties, will not end up in the president-elect's pockets. And the reason you can't assure us of that is because the president-elect is hiding his family's business interests from you, from me, from the rest of America. And this just highlights the absurdity and the danger of the president-elect's refusal to put his assets in a true blind trust.
All right, folks, let's get with it with our panel. Rashad Robinson, Executive Director for Color of Change. Also in studio, Faraji Muhammad, host of Listen Up on WEAA 88.9 and FM in Baltimore. Angela Peoples, Co-Director of Get Equal. Brandon Cooper, Chairman, Prince George's County Republican Party. Rashad, to listen to that, that's a simple answer. No.
Well, we've had problems throughout this whole election of getting simple answers from Dr. Ben Carson, a neurosurgeon who sometimes gets caught up in the brain at times and when asked for an answer. But, all of this really speaks to the ways that while President Obama ran as a change candidate, Donald Trump ran as a change the rules candidate. And that means all the rules for how government works. We may have disagreed with the politics of the Housing and Urban Development Secretary under the Bush administration or other administrations, but we knew that they knew something about housing and urban development. And what we have here is someone who has lived in a house, and that's means that he's now qualified to be Housing and Urban Development Secretary, which means that my lemonade stand in elementary schools should make me Commerce Secretary of the United States.
Also, one of the things, Brandon, Ben Carson had some prepared remarks that he did not read from. Now, folks going through that realize that there were several instances of plagiarism in those prepared comments. Thank goodness he didn't read from that. But you know, to Rashad's point, what is his experience with housing and urban development?
So two things.
There's none.
No, yeah. Two points to that. He said he's the change agent. I think he's bringing someone who's an outsider into this position. And to your part about experience, we have now bipartisan support from 4 former HUD secretaries, including the one under President Clinton, under President Bush, and one at the beginning of President Obama's term, who came out a letter of support in faith and support of Ben Carson. So again, there are 4 former secretaries of HUD. I'm saying
no, Brandon.
Yes, sir.
Brandon.
Yeah.
I'm asking you a very basic question.
Yes.
And that is this: if you have been a neurosurgeon, when you've never run a massive department, where is the evidence that when it comes to housing and urban development, you have a background to lead that? And no, I'm just asking you, where is the evidence that Dr. Carson has that in his repertoire?
There is no direct experience, as I've said before in your show, but we're used to, I guess, using the same measuring stick as past administrations. You said that Barack Obama.
No, actually, I'm not. Actually, I'm not.
So you are. You're looking for a resume that matches previous secretaries. He does not have one.
Actually, I'm not.
So what are you looking for?
If I went into the hospital,
Yes.
For example, first, in 2010, my niece had brain surgery for epilepsy. Okay, I was there. I would not want an orthopedic surgeon operating on my niece for a brain surgery for epilepsy. I would want a neurosurgeon.
And I understand.
And so, if I was a neurosurgeon, and then let's say when I tore my right labrum in my hip, I want an orthopedic surgeon who specializes in hips and not shoulders operating on my hip.
And again, and that's what you want. And I understand that's your right and your perspective that you want. Let me finish. No, but again, that's what you want. That's what you want. For me, I want somebody who grew up in poverty, who understands the issues that he's trying to tackle. What has the past HUD secretaries who have all these experience and degrees, the change that they've brought? Again, you're saying again, the past HUD secretaries
I'll tell
have
you.
confidence in Ben Carson.
Actually, I'll tell you what Jack Kemp did, what also Henry Cisneros did, when they got rid of the high-rise complexes all across the country, had dispersed housing, affordable housing, had mixed-use housing as well. Again, you're talking about multiple billions of dollars. Go ahead.
No, I think that your point is right, and it's not just multiple millions of dollars. It's multiple agencies. It's multiple interstate agencies. There's different programs and dynamics that have to be managed. So it's not just about whether or not Dr. Carson can have some ideas on how to potentially, run or what it might be like to live in an urban area. There's actually a swath of systems and programs that have to not just be interchangeable and have to interact with each other, but they also have to function in some sort of way. And I think that there's this conversation about the Trump President-elect Trump and his appointees, they have this learning curve, and because they're new, they're not, career government employees. But while they're on that learning curve, there are millions of people that need to get their rent checks being sent to them. They need to have their assistance programs sent to them. They need to have their jobs functioning in some sort of way. And we're being asked as the American people and as people who function in civil service in all different layers to sit and wait for folks who don't have the experience for these jobs, don't have the experience to run these programs, to ride on their training wheels. And what is that going to do to our experience and our economy while we are waiting for them to ride on their later?
Okay, 1 second, Faraji.
The housing department of this country has a $47 billion budget. Okay, so we have to ask ourselves, is Dr. Carson qualified to know how to allocate these resources, all right? The big problem that we're seeing, and I mean, the reason, and this is what I read, the reason that they chose Dr. Carson is because he grew up in a housing project. That's not enough.
Actually, that's also false.
He grew up in an urban area.
So here's the thing, though. we're seeing within the Trump administration, Forbes did an assessment of Trump's cabinet. They said that's the wealthiest cabinet in American history, $14 billion in terms of the individual wealth of his cabinet. The bigger problem that I'm having is, as we look at Dr. Carson and so many other people in his cabinet, what is going to be the role, or where are the poor in this cabinet? You have all of these rich people who are so detached from the American people that you got to ask, like, okay, the American person, the workers, and all of us middle class and poor, at this point, are we really going to have a say within this Trump cabinet? And Dr. Carson does not represent the masses of the people.
Kickstart your day at 7 and get the news you need from the perspective you want. NewsOne Now with Roland Martin, every weekday morning at 7 on TV1.